everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you today how to create this rings bracelet. It's going to be using rings and 6mm Czech glass as well as 11 OC beads. It's based on a right angle weave, and then what we're going to do is actually kind of build it up and close it off and seam it so that way it has a nice curvature and sits up a little bit on the side, almost like one of the diamond engagement rings that you see, kind of the diamonds on the side. This is going to be the same way. So this is our rings of diamond bracelet is what I'm going to call it. For this bracelet, or you could turn it into a necklace even, and it would go just kind of to the sides and you'd see some of that pop out. So for the bracelet, which I'm going to do is working with some 6mm Czech glass, and I'm working with amethyst 6mm Czech glass. I'm also going to be working with some of the Czech rings. These are the crystal volcano Czech rings. As far as the glass goes, you're going to need about 21 beads if you want to do a 7-inch wrist, maybe a little bit longer if you want to do a bigger wrist. And then for the Czech rings, we're going to use right about 20 of those. You're going to use one less basically than what you're using in the Czech glass for the Czech rings. For the 11 O beads, I'm going to be using the Magic Iris 11 OC beads, and then I need some thread and a needle. Using Wildfire 0.006 thread. I'm using a white color. I could go white or green depending on which beads that I'm using. I have more white in stock, so I'll go with white. And then I'm also going to use a size 10 English beading needle, and you only need one of these. And I'm going to close mine off and do the closure with a cut button. In addition to that, I have my thread burner and a needle nose pliers just to help me get my thread going and right on. So for the first part of the project here, I'm just going to be working with my 11O beads as well as my Czech rings. These rings do have two sides to them. They have the side for the volcano that has kind of that purplish bluish look to it, and then they have a silver side as well. If you want, you can be picky and you can stack them all the same direction. That's kind of up to you if you have rings that are the different colors. These rings are 9mm and we do carry them in a bunch of different colors. To start out, I have about 4 feet of beading thread. I'm going to use about 6 or 7 feet total. It's just easier for me in the video not to have to pull so much through when you guys are watching. What I'm going to do is take one of my beads, and I'm going to put it on my needle, and I'm going to let it drop down to the bottom of my thread. And I'm not going to worry too much about a tail because I'm going to be adding on my clasp at the very, very end, and I'm using a cut button for that. I'm going to make a stop bead going through my bead once and twice. That's going to make a stop bead. Now I'm going to go in and start with a right angle unit. My right angle units that I'm going to be using here on this side are going to be 3 wide. So for our right angle unit, again, we're doing it in groups of 3, and I have 4 groups of 3 beads on my needle, so 12 in all. Each right angle unit after this, when we're making these squares, will just be 9 beads because we're going to be sharing 3 that we already put on. But for this first one, we have our 12 beads on, and I'm going to let those drop down next to my stop bead. I'm going to take my needle and thread, going away from my stop bead. I'm going to go back through 9 of the 12 beads. And then I'm going to pull nice and tight. That's going to leave 3 beads there on the side, right there. So I've gone back through 9 total. When I have those beads in that I'm coming out, I'm going to add 9 more beads. If you're not sure how to do right angle weave, you may want to also watch another one of our videos. So I have 9 beads on. Here's where it's a little bit different than regular right angle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab onto the last 3 beads here that I put on, but at this point I'm going to put on one of my rings. Then I'm going to go through those last 3 beads that the thread is coming out of from the previous right angle row. So 9 seed beads on and a ring. And I went through 3 of the previous beads. The ring's just going to kind of hang out there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through an additional 3. Get that tail out of there. And then 3 more as well. So I'm always going back through 9 beads, 3 that were already there, and then 6 new ones that I put on. And that's going to create my second right angle unit. So just showing as I'm progressing here that I'm going every other with that right angle weave unit. It's also a nice idea for a necklace, just to kind of let it hang and have it be a fun kind of statement necklace. And I'm continuing on with my right angle units, adding them every other bead and continuing to add 9 beads at a time. So I finished the length of my bracelet here that I'm going to be doing, and what I'm going to be doing is adding 2 more rows basically of right angle weave. We're going to be adding some that are going to add the rings together, and then some kind of that are going to stay open in the middle. I've come to the last group of my row, and I went through the 3 beads that the thread was coming out of, and then 3 more beads. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make an additional right angle unit by adding 9 more beads, and I'm going to go back through those 3 that my thread are coming out of, and then I'm going to go back through 3 more and 3 more again. So I'm going back through 6 beads, and that's how I ended up adding another right angle unit. What I'm going to do now is add a third right angle unit to make it 3 wide, adding 9 more beads. I'm going to go down through the last 3 that the thread's coming out of. And then I'm going to go through 3 more. And what that's going to do is that's going to bring my thread right to the corner that I'm working on. I'm going to come down the bracelet now. So I'm going to come down as I'm working on it, and I'm going to be linking in to my units here. So I'm going to basically pulling in a 3rd row, but I'm going to, instead of adding a ring, I'm going to be attaching to the ring. So again, I've got my start. I have 3 beads on. I'm going to add 9 beads. I'm going to circle through my ring, and then I'm going back through the 3 beads at the bottom of that last right angle unit, the 3 beads that the thread is coming out of. And when I pull tightly, it's going to connect that ring right in the middle. I'm going to go down through 3 more. And then over 3 more. And then when you lay it out, you have your first little right angle unit here where it's connected. The next right angle unit I'm going to do is going to be empty. So this is just a repeat of what I've been doing. I'm going to pour out a couple more beads here. And again, I'm going to add 9 beads. So I'm always adding 9. I'm going to go back through the 3 that I was coming out of. A little knot in my tail here. So I'm back through the 3 that my thread was coming out of, and then I'm also going to go back through the next 6. And pull tightly. Now I'm ready to add another right angle unit. When I add this next right angle unit, we're going to pick up the ring again. So every other one I'm going to be picking up the ring. And it really is just a repeat of the first side. And instead of adding the ring, I'm just picking up the ring that's across from it. Give a nice tight pull, and then go through an additional 6 beads. Just like I've been doing. And then again, this next one that I'm going to do, I'm going to add 9 beads on. Go back through the 3 the beads are coming out of, and then 6 more. And I'm going to continue building on. And what that's going to do is continue getting my rings right attached to that right angle unit. So just showing the bracelet as I'm working with it, and I'm working again doing another row of right angle weave, and that's taking the place every other one, and that's how I'm getting these rings linked in. And then on go the 9 seed beads. And they are going to go this row, just the right angle weave, just like you were doing with the first row. And you can see I switch it in my hands. It makes it easier for me to hold. That gets that next row done. So the next row is going to be empty. And then the next right angle unit here, or raw unit, sometimes you'll hear right angle referred to as raw. Right angle weave, it's just an abbreviation. And after I put on my seed beads, I'm going through my ring, through my ring that's on the other side, back through 3 beads, and then back through 6. And that's going to bring that together. And then I'm ready for my next right angle unit. And you can see that's what's joining those rings together and keeping that middle open and lacy. So I'm at the last of my right angle units here on the side, and I've added my 9 beads, and I'm going back through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle the whole way around. So I'm going back through the 3 that I added, second 3 that I added, and then the third 3. So your needle is going to come out right in the middle here. What I'm going to do at this point is to make my unit look the same as the start to the other. I'm going to close this up here. To do that, I'm going to use 3 beads. I'm going to shorten my tail a little bit here. I'm using 3 beads, and then I'm going to go up the 3 beads on the other side of the right angle unit. So I'm coming out the base of the last one that I just did. I'm putting 3 beads on, and I'm going to the opposite side to the first right angle unit that we worked on. Once I'm coming out at the top, I'm going to add 3 more beads, and then I'm going through the 3 beads at the top of the right angle unit that was added last, and that's going to close it up. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get ready then to add down the middle of my unit here. I'm going to be adding my Czech Glass beads. To get to the middle, I'm going to take my thread down the side of that last right angle unit. I'm going to go up the middle here towards the middle. So I'm just lacing around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my thread and my needle out after 2 beads. So when we connected that section, we put on 3 beads. I'm bringing my needle and thread out after 2 beads. Next, what I'm going to do is get ready to add my beads down my center line. I'm going to take my needle and thread through my first ring. When I'm coming through my first ring, I'm going to add a seed bead, a 6mm, and a seed bead. Then I'm sewing down through the next ring. What's going to happen is that's going to sit right in between my rings. Again, seed bead, 6 seed bead, and sew through. And I'm just doing that the whole length of my bracelet. So I'm going to add my seed bead, a 6, and my seed bead, and sew through my next crystal volcano ring. And you can see that's giving a nice little pretty look to it. sew down the whole way along your bracelet, adding those seed beads on either side of your 6mm faceted rounds. So now that I'm coming out the end here, I'm not going to want to pull tightly. If you pull tightly, what it's going to do is going to bunch up your bracelet. So I'm not going to worry too much about pulling tight. I just want those beads to kind of float in there. If you want to, you can even add an extra seed bead in the place, so you can do 2 seed beads before your 6mm, and that'll just kind of spread it out a little bit. At the end here, when I'm coming out my last ring, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew through 2 beads that are on the ends. When I'm coming out of those 2 beads, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more of my Czech Glass bead. And then I'm going to sew through all 3 beads on the other side. What that's going to do is kind of bring that together. And that kind of creates an anchor there on the end. To then close it up or create my look that I'm getting, what you're going to do is you're going to fold the outer 2 edges, and we're going to be folding them back and connecting them between the beads. And what that's going to do is pop the beads out the front side. So we're actually working from the back side. To work from the back side, I'm coming out those 2 middle beads. I want to get to the end and to a corner. So I'm going to go through 3 more beads. And that brings me out on the corner of my project. When I'm coming out the corner of my project, I'm going to add some beads here to connect those 2 sides. So you're folding up the sides. I've added 3 beads here, and then I'm going to pick up the 3 beads that are on the opposite side. And give a nice tight pull. Again, 3 beads are going to go on, and I'm going to pick up the 3 beads in the right angle unit on the opposite side, so I'm zigzagging back and forth. And actually, to pull a little bit tighter, I'm going to use just 2 beads. So I put 2 beads on, go through 3 beads, and give a nice tight pull. 2 more beads go on, opposite side, go through those 3 beads there on the side of the Czech Glass. Oops. Make sure they go to the back here. And give a nice tight pull. You can tell in the front then when you flip it over, it's creating those rings and those little pockets of crystals. And we continue just adding 2 beads at a time, and then picking up the 3 beads that would be on the opposite side of the row. So you're basically just doing a quick stitch right up the back, adding 2 beads at a time, and that's going to make your whole project sit up. And kind of push those to the front if you need to. 2 more beads, over to the other side to the 3. You can see then the zigzag motion that's going along the back here. And as that's going along the back, what I'm also doing then is popping those beads out the front. So it's getting a nice look to it, that those purple beads are nice and sparkly, and they're coming right through and popping right through the front. So I have 1 more stitch up the back to go, but you can see now the bracelet from the side and from the top angle, and it has a little bit of a stiffness to it that by the time you put the clasp on and wear it a couple times, it will release, but it's a nice almost bangle. It sits up and it has a really great look to it. To finish it off, I actually need to add one of my beads in, but to do that first, I'm going to do my last 2 beads. I'm going to go up through the 3 on the other side, just like I've been doing the entire way. And then I'm going to do 3 more beads, and after those 3 beads I'm going to come down the other side. Before I make it really tight, I do want to pop that bead in there. So to pop that bead in there, I'm going to come out between these 2 beads here that I just put on. And what I should have done on the first row is actually added this to begin with, but I'm going to go through the bottom here, add that bead in, do a little basically problem solving, and kind of pop that out right there. What that's going to do is allow me to get ready to put on my clasp. To do my clasp then, I'm going to attach a loop to one end and my button to the other end. To attach my loop and my button, what I'm going to do is to attach my loop, I'm going to take one of my rings and I'm going to create, I'm going to take a ring and then a 6mm. Let that drop down next to my project. And I actually want to see the purple side, so I'm going to flip it. And I'm going in through the silver. That's going to shift that purple side on the outside. So I have that purpley silver right at the end, ready to attach my clasp. To attach my clasp then, I'm going to add 4 of my 11/0 seed beads, come up the back of my cup button and out the front. If you want to, you can even add a ring that's going to sit right on top of the cup button. That's up to you. I'm just going to add 3 seed beads. O beads, if you have O beads, they look really nice too. But I have my 3 on. I'm going to come down the other side of my cup button. Get that tail out of there. And I'm going to repeat by adding 4 more seed beads. Then I'm going to come back down through my 6mm, back through my O bead, and back through that 3mm or that 6mm Czech glass that I put on right at the end. And that's going to create my little loop for my button. I'm going to reinforce this a little bit and tie off my thread, and then I'm going to go to the other side and create a loop in order to attach everything. So I'm going around in a circle here. I can tie off this starter thread and take off my end or my starter bead there. And then I'm going to go back through and reinforce. So on the other end here, I'm going to have to take some thread and needle and add it. And I'm just going to come up one of the sides, let that thread hang out there. I'm going to go around to the top, bottom, and the whole way around here. So that way I can tie off that thread. Once I get to my starting area, then I can tie those 2 threads together to get ready to create my loop. I'm just doing 2 overhand knots, and then I'm going to create a loop. To create a loop, you want to use your 11/0 seed beads, and I'm going to make the loop just big enough to go over my cup button, but not too big that it'll come off. I'm going to string a bunch of beads on here. To make my loop. I'm going to let those drop down next to my last little kind of right angle cube unit here. See if that's big enough. I think I'm going to need a couple more beads. A couple more are going to go on. And then what I'm going to do is go back through the 3 beads at the top of my bracelet. And that's going to create my loop to hold my cup beads right in place there. And my bracelet, when I work on it, and when it's done then, and all I'm going to do then is reinforce that loop going through it another time, and then cut off my threads, burn them off, and there you have your fun little diamond and rings, the side view of the bracelet. Again, it's almost like a bangle. I'll also try it on for you here. And it's kind of great. It has a really unique look to it, that it sits up a little bit on the wrist. And then with the button closure, clasp, you also have some variety to the back too. So you can see what's going on the sides, like I said. So it can also be worn as a necklace. You could hang and dangle things down from it as well. But it's a fun addition of how to kind of make those beads pop, and you're actually working at it from the front to the back and pushing those out, doing that zigzag of the 2 beads. So it's a really nice addition to some of our other products and using these new rings to do so. If you get a chance, you can check out the rest of our videos too on YouTube to subscribe to our channel. You can also visit us online at PotomacBeads.com. Check out our locations page, and we'd love to see you in one of our physical stores to take a class or to gather some materials. If you don't live near one of our stores and you want some materials, you need some cut buttons to do your clasps or even some magic seed beads or some of the new rings, you can check us out at thebeadco.com. Thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully you have fun making this nice little ring and raised diamond bracelet. Thanks a lot and have a great rest of your day and happy beading.